And my background is mostly in natural resources and environmental science, where I had my diploma in general agriculture a long time ago from Addis Ababa University, Hawassa Unit College of Agriculture, and then Associate of Applied Science degree in Marine Science and Water Quality from University of DC, and a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science from University of DC, and a Master's of Environmental Management from University of Maryland. So mostly what I'm presenting here is my expert opinion about current environmental situation in Oromia. And I had a chance to go to Ethiopia a year ago, and I spent sometimes in Oromia around Finfinne, and Shakiso, and Kanticha, and at the mining, with the mining company. So, like I said, my professional background is also I'm a certified floodplain manager and lead environmental scientist with over 15 years experience with U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency and United States Geological Survey. And I also conducted several social and environmental impact assessment here in the United States and in developing countries, and particularly in Oromia. And I'm very familiar with what is going on in Oromia. And this is an overview of what I will be talking about. And first, I'm going to look at a natural resource in Oromia, current environmental status in Oromia, environment and human rights, environmental justice in Oromia, the need for environmental advocacy in Oromia. Oromia is endowed with abundant natural resources and breadbasket for Ethiopian Empire State. Oromia's favorable climate and rich soil makes Oromia the best region for cultivation of variety of crop, including coffee. Rivers in Oromia are source of great agro-industrial and hydroelectric power. Oromia is a southern greenbelt region with huge gold reserve. So this is actually a short information about the resources that Oromia has, and I just inserted this for those of you who are not Oromos or Oromo friends, to just give you a clue how Oromia is rich with natural resources, and yet the people in Oromia are suffering from poverty. And so I want to assess why there is a poverty when we are so rich. The crater like Bishoftu, Kuruftu, Bishoftu Guddo, Hora Kulole, Hora Arseddi, and the river valley lakes Zuwai, Abiata, Shala, Langano are known for their recreational purposes and polluted. These lakes have also immense potential for fishery development. So after looking at, once I look at the natural resource of Oromia, and I will be talking about the current status of those resources. And in 20 years lifespan, and a lot of things has been changed regarding environmental condition in Oromia. And there are very, very alarming rate of pollution in Oromia, and so I will be talking about that. The explored mineral deposit of Oromia include gold, platinum, tantalum, tantalite, and uranium, nickel, iron ore, soda ash, diatomite, limestone, feldspar, silica, sand, dolomite, kaolin, granite, and other non-metallic construction materials are mined in Oromia, especially around southern Oromia, in around Shakiso and Katicha. And gold mines are those like Adambi, Najo, River Valley, gypsum. And these are, a mineral in western ceramic southern Oromia provides the TPLF regime a huge foreign currency. The coffee account also 39.4% of total export in 2001 and 2002. Kunani qabeenna Oromooti jechuudha. Qabeenni Oromoon qabdu hedduu. Kanaafuu hydroelectric power illee qooqaa fincaa malkaawwakanne kun cuftinuu biyya Oromoo keessa kaati. Wanni biraa immoo qabeenya kan hojjennee laallu the cultural heritage sites and topographic spectacles of the region makes Oromia a perfect tourist destination that generates millions of dollars in annual blood money as a result for the regime. So let's talk about the current situation in Oromia. So we have a large amount of reserves in gold and abundant natural resources in our country. And those resources are being compromised because of, the way the current regime is handling. So, the sustainability of these resources are at risk, very alarming rate. So the rise of economic globalization marked by liberalized trade rules and the dominance of multinational corporations has played a key role in shifting environmental pollution from industrialized country to developing country. And when you look at a trend especially in Ethiopia, a lot of multinational corporations are going after cheap labor, going after cheap resources, and they are regulated in other countries. But in developing countries, the regulations are not existing sometimes, and if it exists, it's very minimal. So they profit a lot from this. So they're going to developing countries. Oromia is disproportionately affected by pollution because the regime has allocated a large chunk of lands from Oromia to the so-called investors, and that's through a land grab. So these lands are going to be used for industry, commercial agriculture, and there is no accountability of the activities of these corporations. So you can easily imagine what will happen then. Ethiopia land grab is widely criticized by right groups as violent acts that takes away people's right to food, access to ancestral land. You might have heard, in media, dishes have been covered widely about the land grab in Ethiopia, and the most population that are affected by this phenomena is, Oromia region. So Oromos has been evicted from their land, and the land has been given to the so-called investors, and at that, not only strip the right of ownership of the land, but they are destroying their environment too. Environmental degradation is a major concern in Oromia land grab deals, where regulations and transparency are not required to conduct a business in Ethiopia. The lands are sold in a very cheap, prices, and there is no requirement whatever they want to establish on that land. There is no environmental impact assessment, and the impact of their activities are not checked, so no regulation. Is eventually causing a great damage, which causes a loss of and degradation of wetland, decrease in wildlife population, habitat, proliferation of invasive species, toxic release, a loss of biodiversity is very evident, in Oromia. And I have been especially in the industrial zone of Oromia, around Akaki, Sabata, and Finfinne, and when you go to Bishoftu, and the impact is very evident. The lakes are, you see a dead lake. When we call a dead, a lake a dead, the marine life doesn't exist in that water. Eutrophication, when you see a Hora lake, the lake is green because of eutrophication, that pollution from the farmland in the area. And the impact is not also from agricultural runoff. Industries in the surrounding area are also contaminating the land and water resources. Okay, environmental justice injustice happen when environmental degradation not only takes place, but the environment of disfranchised community is destroyed in a reckless manner. To take away one's land is unjust, but to destroy an ecosystem, leaving it unfit for further human use is blatant injustice. According to some sources, about 7 million hectares of Oromo land is projected to be grabbed by 2015. This land is, like I said, is transferred to corporations that are known for the violation of environmental laws and are sometimes evicted from neighboring countries. And this business often violates internationally recognized human rights. They are not required to conduct due diligence to ensure that their action or omission violate this right. And let me go to, I have only limited time, and let me go to human rights aspect of environmental protection. And the reason why I'm doing that is, we need an advocacy in environmental protection, like political organizations, a civic organization, individuals. When they talk about injustice, in Ethiopia, they shouldn't ignore the destruction the regime is doing in that country in terms of natural resources. If there is no sustainability of resources, that's going to be a major problem, whoever seize a power in the future. So resource is a very vital aspect of social and political aspect. Okay, corporate abuse also extends to labor practices where business are not in compliance with internationally agreed labor practice, guaranteeing freedom of association and collective bargaining, compulsory labor, child labor, discrimination. You will see all of this a violation of human rights with this corporation in Ethiopia. In absence of environmental law and a good governance, corporate and government responsibilities posing challenge to improving food security, environmental sustainability in Oromia. demographic pressure, climate change, increased competition for land and resources is also another problem that causes vulnerability to food insecurity and ecological integrity in Oromia. Let me go to human rights and environmental aspect of my presentation. Ethiopia has ratified agreements and treaties such as the Convention of Biological Diversity, the Basel Convention on Control of Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Waste, the United Nations Framework of Convention on Climate Change, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, the Vienna Convention and Montreal Protocol for the Protection of Ozone Layer, the Rotterdam Convention, and Stockholm, and they ratified many treaties as much as they can, but they are not abide by the law, and even in their constitution, the Constitution of Ethiopia guarantees people's right to live in a very safe and healthy environment. They are violating their own constitution, and they are also violating international agreement they signed, everything they ratified. Most human rights treaties were drafted and adopted before environmental protection became a matter of international concern, but recent trends link environment and human rights. International concern with human rights, health, and environment protection has expanded considerably recently. In response, the international community has created a vast area of international legal instruments, specialized organs and agencies at a global and regional level to respond to identified problems in the area of health, human rights, and environment. So there is a total destruction of environment is going on in, especially in Oromia, and I personally call it it's an ecocide. So there are some movement. Currently in this world that want to, they are campaigning to bring environmental crimes to International Criminal Court, and ecocide, and genocide, and actually what happening in Oromia is not only environmental pollution, but it's total destruction. So the impact will be, very immense. Within 10 years to 15 years, we're going to feel the impact. Sustainability of resources, economic and social sustainability is being compromised. So what I would like to say is my message to everybody here, individually, in group, a political organization, civic, when you are advocating about human rights in Oromia, you should also make public what's going on about the destruction of environment in Oromia. And this is how we can do it. Like I said, mass destruction of ecosystem is international crime against peace, alongside genocide, a crime against humanity. It leads to resource depletion, where there is escalation of resource depletion, war comes chasing and behind. So this is a serious, situation, and we can bring the matter. There is no specialized procedure to appeal for environmental crimes. But most human rights, listens to environmental destruction of this magnitude. So in our part, what we can do is we need environmental advocacy campaign in Oromia, and this is how we do it. Establish an environmental advocacy group, start environmental justice movement, raise environmental awareness, stage even protest against ecocide in Oromia, work with media, organize environmental events, bring plight of environment of Oromia to the world attention by appealing to responsible countries and international institutions. On an international scale, join groups that are fighting similar environmental problems in order to synergize our effort. And thank you for listening to me.